So I recently received a question from a new subscriber about the Canon 1D Mark I Classic, and did that camera have playback zoom? They couldn't find the playback zoom, and I thought to myself, I haven't used that camera in a long time. Did it have playback zoom? I don't think it did. So I got it out, dusted it off. I haven't used it in years, and I got the battery to charge up a little bit, not much, a little bit. And I confirmed that it does not have playback zoom. It is the only Canon DSLR not to have playback zoom. So that's really interesting. And at the exact same time I was doing this, my wife called me into the bedroom. She's like, come quick. And I get in there. One of our cats had sat and slowly over 15 minutes just kept tossing clothes out of her drawer so that it would have a nice, comfortable place to lay down inside the drawer. So since I had the Canon 1D in my hand, I went and grabbed my 200mm lens and monopod to see if I could get a shot, because this bedroom was very poorly lit. We have one light bulb. It's very dim. And I took a photo of the cat. And that got me thinking, like, this would be a perfect example for a test. My oldest 20-year-old, that camera is almost 20 years old, a 20-year-old camera against my newest Canon M50 Mirrorless, which is, I don't know, a couple years old at this point. So a fair test would mean I have to use the same lens, and I just happen to have a Viltrox Speedbooster for that camera. So the original Canon DSLR professional first ever versus a new prosumer, pretty affordable, kind of mid-range mirrorless camera, little mini mirrorless camera. And here's the results. So this photo of Caonon was taken with the 1D at 1/16 of a second, 200mm focal length, ISO 1600 on a monopod. Now, why I didn't grab a tripod so that it would have been a lot sharper, I don't know. I thought a monopod would be fine, but this room was actually really dark. There was not enough light really to take pictures in this room, so it looked a lot darker than this to the eye, honestly. I was actually really surprised by the quality of the image. ISO 1600 on this old camera is really pretty clean. You kind of see some noise here in places here and there, and I'd say most of the sharpness, it's not very sharp. Most of that's because 1/16 shutter speed on a 200mm lens, which is just not good even with a monopod. So I grabbed my Canon M50, I grabbed my adapter, and I put this 200mm lens on it and took another shot. And I was like, ugh, it wasn't that great. And then I realized the camera was at 6400 ISO, the automatic, the aperture exposure, full auto ISO settings. It went at f2.0. It wanted to do 1/100th of a second shutter speed, and it set the ISO to 6400, and that's still not quite enough light, really. I think it should have dropped the shutter speed down a little bit more because this was a little underexposed. But I mean, I don't love this image because it's just a little dark, and it just, but it's a whole lot sharper. It's quite a bit sharper, even at ISO 6400. So it's amazing what this camera can do at ISO 6400. While I was in the process of adjusting the settings so that they'd more closely match the 1D, Caonon got kind of aggravated and changed position. So Caonon found another place to set, and I switched settings to ISO 2000. I was still at f2.0 with the Speedbooster, and I set my shutter speed to 1/20th, I think, of a second, so it'd be a lot closer to what the 1D was at. And so you can see it's a little blurry. It's not quite as blurry as the 1D, and it looks pretty good, but the light, the color, I don't know, just like the basic settings on the camera, I just don't think it does as good with white balance. It still looks a little dingy to me compared to the 1D. I cannot believe how clean and how much I like that 1D image. And again, it would have been sharp if I'd just, if I'd had a flash, if I'd had some way, because that camera has flash sync of 1/500th. The 1D could do flash sync at 1/500th. That's crazy. But anyway, yeah, I mean, would have been the better image if I just set up a tripod instead tried to use a monopod at 1/16th of a second. The truth is, it makes no sense to like compare these two cameras against each other. One is a 20-year-old professional DSLR, and the other one is a couple-year-old mini mirrorless camera, kind of aimed at kind of like people like me, vlog makers and kind of amateur video makers, families. It's an awesome little camera, but if I was going somewhere like pretty rugged, I would just rather take the old 1D because it's probably a lot more likely to handle it. Of course, if it had working batteries, the Canon 1D would take 1,000 shots if the battery was fully charged and working. Whereas this this mirrorless, I'd be lucky to get maybe 100 or so. But anyway, I am stunned by the quality of a 20-year-old DSLR, and I every time I get it out and use it, sometimes I'm like, I can't believe this camera was this good. See ya.